what those five freedoms are. For anybody who might never have heard of them, tell them so that this can change their lives.
Yes, yes. So financial freedom, time freedom, geographic freedom, freedom of association, and freedom of purpose.
And is there any order to it? Is it like, do people generally try for financial freedom first or time freedom, or is it really just up to each individual person and their goals? Talk a little bit about that.
I love that. Yeah, I think that the key really is that financial freedom. Once the passive income comes in that is more than your expenses every month, boom, you're unlocked. You can do, you can travel. You can go,
out of that rat race,
yes,
right? Like Robert Kiyosaki said.
Yeah, you're out of that hamster wheel for sure.
Yeah. And then from there, then with the five freedoms. So remind me again. So after, so financial freedom, then after that, it are all the other four. So we have geographical, we have time, we have freedom of association, we have freedom of purpose, right? To me, it almost seems like not hierarchical, but there's like some logic to it, right? Like after you've taken away that worry about money, right? It's like one less thing, as Forrest Gump says, one less thing to worry about, right? Yeah. So then you can think, okay, well, what do I actually want to do with my time? Where do I want to live? Which many people now with COVID are starting to have the opportunity to start thinking about, where do I actually want to live? What do I actually want to do? And so where are you in that spectrum, and how have these five freedoms helped to shape your life?
It's incredible. And I tell so many people this, how quickly you can, step into these five freedoms. One of the best examples, and I love using numbers because I think it really makes it tangible for folks. If your expenses are $4,000 a month and you're able to generate $4,000 a month in passive income, you are free. This is not something where you need to accumulate millions upon millions. And I think our culture or education system or, something tells us kind of this idea of what it really means to be wealthy or rich. But truly, wealth is simply how many days you can go, or weeks or months, however you want to measure it, without having to work your job and trade your time for money. So if you can keep your expenses low, and some people have different opinions about that, but in that example, generating $5,000 or $4,000 a month isn't as difficult as you would think. So I love giving that example because it seems to unlock people's minds as to what's possible.
You did mention, I'm just going to dig in because you said you like to nerd out about market research. And it was something that early on I was just totally overwhelmed by. I was like, as soon as I realized I wasn't going to invest in the Bay Area, I was like, well, I have the whole United States here. Like, where do I even start? Do I go to the big cities, the little cities, like Southeast, close to me? So tell us a little bit, give us some tips on market research. If there's somebody out there who's currently in that phase, who's like overwhelmed and needs to pick their spot, what advice do you have for them?
Yeah, this bridges so perfectly into what we talked about in terms of the team too. We're all California ladies, right? And I don't want to speak for you all, but I don't think you all invest in California either. So when you have a team, the whole country opens up to you, right? You don't have to invest where you live because most likely, even if you're not in California, maybe you don't live in a market that's in the part of the cycle that makes sense. So that being said, some tips that I think of. So market research is really the traveling of real estate for me. So I mentioned I like to travel in my free time. Part of the fun of market research in the United States is really getting to know these markets. So when we think about population growth, where we just had a massive change in migration in the United States over the past 2 years. And with that, a bunch of opportunity just came up. Where are folks moving? Where are Californians invading, right? Where are people from our state heading out to? Not just our state, but then we look at job growth. What markets have done really well despite kind of the economic hardships during COVID? There are definitely markets that barely saw a blip over the past 2 years and are thriving or maybe even in a better economic time than where they were prior to the pandemic. Then we can also look at landlord-friendly states. Not all states treat residents the same. And I'm not a slumlord. You all aren't slumlords. We're just looking for something that's fair, right? Fair and equitable, where we can have a mutually beneficial relationship with our residents. Where if they're not paying, we have the ability to work with them and run a business. Because at the end of the day, we all have to pay our mortgages, right? Regardless. So those types of things, you can Google them. You can look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You can look at the Federal Reserve website to understand unemployment. Local economic development committees that can give you hints about what jobs are on the horizon. Those are just a few tools there that can be really helpful in identifying exciting emerging markets that I use.